And welcome to another edition of the Fusion Fam Pod. I'm your host, Jon Meterparel, and it's great to see one of the outstanding teachers at the Fusion School in Newton, Tom Ryan, part of the science department. Tom, good to see you, and thanks for spending some time with us.
Thank you for having me. This is wonderful.
Just give us some of your background of, first of all, why are you at the Fusion School? What brought you here?
What brought me here? I think it's a different approach, a more personalized approach, something that is allows you to be freer in terms of what you're capable of doing with each student. You can make the entire curriculum much more accessible, and also you can use methods that really aren't that effective in a large classroom setting, where you can be much more personalized and much more individualized in terms of what you're capable of doing for a student, and that's essentially really Fusion's whole mission is to be much more personalized, and I think that's very helpful, especially for this particular population of students.
And what's the average day look like for Tom Ryan?
The average day, I get up very early because I live in the South End, and it's an hour and a half commute to get here by T.
Wow.
Yeah. But I get here around 7. I have my first students usually around 8:30, and I'm finished around 3:30. It's 50-minute classes. They vary in tempo. They vary in what we do. Sometimes we're writing together. Sometimes we're reading together. I use videos a lot. John Green, who I think everybody knows, did a TED Talk about that if you're not using the materials on YouTube right now, that you're really not utilizing all the resources that you can possibly have. Wow. A lot of the material is up to the minute sometimes. One of my students is a senior who's doing a pharmacophysiology science elective, and we did a review of infectious disease and epidemiology this morning using the coronavirus. And that was literally posted yesterday, so you have an enormous resource online, and I utilize it heavily. Most of the time I use textbooks or other written materials. It's more to do problems in physics, reinforced chemistry, some basic chemistry. Biology, very rarely. Biology is so much more organic. Yep. I'd rather be in the lab and do some things. We do a lot of projects. I try to be very project driven. And I think that one of the biggest things I like about here is we're able to slow things down a little bit for them in terms of that sense of anxiety about expectations being, okay, come on, let's go, produce. I'm trying to explain to them that this is more about process. How are we going to get there? Not, when are we going to get there? We got to get there now. Let's work on how we get there, because that's the way life works.
Yeah.
It is. You can walk into a job. You have to figure out the landscape. Your resources there. Who to talk to. Utilize all of those resources, and that's when you're going to be an educated human being, is being able to know what your resources are and utilize them appropriately.
From where you are now and from where you came from, how have you developed as a person, not only professionally, but even when you're not at work? Do you feel like this is the type of job that's very enriching for you?
Yeah, definitely. I've always taken this approach. When I was at Boston Medical Center, I took this approach. When I was teaching, when I was teaching at Boston Public Schools for a while, when I was doing some specialist work here in Newton, I've always tried to be more of a co-learner, like get excited. Like, I watch these videos, I go home and I get involved in this, and this is something exciting that really I'm fascinated by, and I want to share this with you. Let's learn this together, rather than I'm up here and you're down there. And I don't talk, I don't teach down to them. It's more like, and sometimes I'll even pretend I don't know what the material is, like, I haven't done this in a while. Let's look into this. It's like, I forget, and let's look, and and I haven't, but we
Right.
we sort of co-learn, and And then they feel that if they know something, they can share that with me, and that they're actually teaching me something they know. And that, that therefore they've internalized the material, and at some point, and they're bringing it back to the surface. So, yeah.
Well, this is enlightening for me, because I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, why couldn't I have had teachers like Tom Ryan? Because this seems to me, it's not that difficult of a fit. It's just a matter of you need to be willing to do it.
I think it's also a personality thing.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be in a place where you can let it go. There's a certain amount of humility you have to have. You can't really have an ego here. You can't sort of say, I'm, doctor this and professor that. It's, you have to very much be someone who is sharing the journey with them, and not, someone who's just, dragging them along, on your journey. It's more about, as I said, being more, not a buddy. I don't want to say that at all, but not being so above them that they can't ask you whatever they need to ask you, and feel that you're a resource and a friend and someone they can trust. I think trust is the biggest thing. They can definitely, you can trust you, they can trust you. And that's huge for me. I mean, I that's the thing that I never, sometimes, I'll be in a situation where it's like, oh, I really need to cover this. And it's like, no, I just can't, I can't push this. They're not in a good space. We've done enough, they may not get this particular fact, but I just don't want to make this a thing. I just want to, let's just move on. They'll see it again. This is not the last time they're going to see this material, especially if they're middle school students. Even if they're high school students and they get, they might see it in another course in college. Sometimes content isn't necessarily as important as process, and how they actually internalize things, and how they organize themselves, and how they move forward in things and feel comfortable with things. So I'd rather do that. And I think that's a personality thing. I don't, I don't need to be thought of as, exalted, blah, blah, blah. I just, I'd rather just be considered someone who's a resource, and someone who's capable of being trusted and sought after for advice.
What's the most rewarding part of your job?
Seeing the changes. It's day to day. It can be very challenging. Sometimes some of the kids who come to us are in a really bad place, and me not focusing on that bad place, but focusing on our time together, and seeing that it's not about whatever's troubling them. It's just about us being together and working together, and that's not important. And they start to feel that, I am safe here, and I am comfortable here, and you can sort of see some of the fidgeting and the tics and the other sort of, or the not being able to look at you, or other affectations that, they sort of melt away after a while. And that takes, I've been here a year and a half. Yeah, it takes a long time. I mean, some students that I started with last year are just now in a place where they are really, proud of what they do, capable of being very forward with their ideas, but that was not who they were when they arrived. And I think that's the biggest reward. Sometimes that happens quickly. Sometimes that happens painfully slowly, but it does happen. And some kids come and they're very hyper, and you've got to do just the opposite. You kind of have to give them a calming space, and a space where it's like, yes, I know you can, read the material and give me the number, but we have to talk about process, and we have to sort of, you have to slow things down for yourself, and sort of figure out how you're going to, put things down. Do you want to start a journal? Do you want to start, we can start a Google Doc together, and continue grabbing things along the way, maybe screen grabs or ideas or quotes, and create as we go along to sort of calm things down. So you've got kids who are in very different places, and they come at you every 50 minutes. And sometimes that's difficult and exhausting, but it's never boring. you always get something out of every class, because you're not focused on whether or not they can, spit photosynthesis back at you, but whether or not that they, had an experience where they felt like they moved forward in how they learn,
yep, and
how comfortable they are with the process of learning.
If you were talking to a parent about, if they ask you, why should my son or daughter go to Fusion, what do you tell them?
I think it's very individualized. I think if your child needs to be in a situation where they no longer feel that the world is chasing them, I think sometimes schools can, those that I've seen, can be very, not threatening, but the expectations are so enormous, especially in Massachusetts, and the pressure can be horrendous. It's like we can give them a little space to breathe and be who they need to be, and that sounds very, huggy, kissy, tree huggy, but it's not. It's real, yep, and you do that in life. If you have a coworker who's just overwhelmed, you would take them aside and you would give them some help and you give them some time, and even if you were a group leader in any business, it's like, I need to give you a little time, a little more than others, and that's what this is. It's giving them a little bit more time to just calm down and say, it's not me, it's the situation, and there's nothing wrong with me at all. It's just the external pressures were a little too much, and I needed to breathe for a little bit, yep, and know that it isn't me, because sometimes you convince yourself that, oh, everyone else is great and I'm just wrong, but this is this is a space where you can say, no, there's nothing wrong with me, I'm fine, I just need a different approach, and I have to learn in my life that this is how I need to do things. I'm not going to just run in and try to get back into that incredible competitive space, and this isn't who I am. This is not who I am. I can't do that. That's just not how my life is going to go.
What have you learned at each step along the way in your career? You've had a very academic career. What have you learned about yourself personally and professionally?
Everyone's different. I've worked with people from all over the world, and BU here. I grew up in a very mixed neighborhood in New York, in West Harlem, and that everyone's doing their best, and if you just move toward kindness over everything else, and good things will happen. If someone's acting up, there's a reason they're acting up. Whether it's at work or school, there's a reason. That doesn't mean you can excuse it, because again, I'm, a little bit more disciplinarian than some people, but that doesn't mean, it has to be, sit down, be quiet. It's right. Just like, what's going on? This isn't about this. This is about something else. What's going on? Yeah. And sometimes they can't tell you because they don't know, but at least you can ask the question. And I think that's what I've done all the way through, is just, sort of say this, whatever's going on is not about the moment, it's about something else. And if you just take a breath and just ask what's going on, it may even give them the opportunity to say, wow, something is going on, and maybe help them figure it out. They may not figure it out with you, but just giving them that pause may be helpful. And I think that just, makes my life easier. I'm not always, antagonistic with people and in conflict all the time. It's, sort of like, what's the deal? Why is this so important, or why is this so angering, or whether, and I try to do that with myself as well. I'm not as successful with myself, especially when I'm driving. but you try to be, you just sort of say, what's really going on here? This is not. And I think that's what you learn is, people are people, and give them the benefit of the doubt, and just hope that they can do their best, and you try to do your best.
It's a refreshing outlook. It's something that we need more of now.
Oh, thanks.
No, I think it's you should run for president.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No, probably not.
No.
Yeah, no. I don't think you want a piece of that.
No, I don't.
I'm just guessing.
No.
Dealing with the staff here on a daily basis, what's that like for you and the teamwork that's involved at Fusion?
I think as someone who's taken on a position here, they at least want to try to be a part of the process. Sometimes they may not have completely understood what the process was, and it could be a little bit overwhelming. But you know, we try to help each other. We try to be supportive of each other. We try to, you know, if they're looking for a particular, you know, piece of curriculum or class notes, or you know, you try to here, take this. Take this folder. We're good, and build more of that so that we have more time to focus on the kids and not so much about the nitty-gritty process of getting things done.
Right.
And everyone's pretty much, it takes a while because it is so unique, and some people have to let go of some ideas about how they want to run their day. Sometimes they kind of go into their office and become very isolated because I have to figure this out on my own, and and then they kind of eventually sort of say, no, you really don't. You don't have to figure this out on your own. That's not how you're going to move forward for the kids or for you.
Yeah.
You have to sort of say, I can't. When I was first here, I was so overwhelmed. My first 3 months, oh my goodness, I felt, and I had been teaching at a very high level for a long time, and I felt like I didn't know what I was doing because things were coming at me so fast, and so the emotional aspect of it every day was just so random and intense that it takes a while to sort of say, well, okay, I can't engage with this. I have to step back away from it. I'm not going to benefit. They're not going to benefit. You pull back a little bit. Sometimes kids come in, they're crying. They're they're hard, having the worst day of their lives. And sometimes you just have to step back and just listen and let them just be, wherever they're at.
Yeah.
And they don't want you to say anything. They don't want any advice. They don't want your help. They just want you to listen. Just listen. And I think that's another thing. It's just, just shut up and listen. Sometimes we think we're gonna fix things or help, and no, I've never ever found that. I never try to help. I never try to fix things.
It's a lost art, listening.
Yeah, it is a lost art. I think it's a lot of times people, don't feel useful in some ways, and they think, oh, if I can help, I can be useful, and I can put my 2 cents in,
right,
and I can get things going, and it's like, not really. No, that's not good. That's not good at all.
In terms of the next steps for you, do you see yourself, I know it's a hard question maybe to answer, but in the next 5 years, how you are going to develop as a teacher, as the Fusion future, so to speak?
I would like to streamline curriculum here so that when someone walks in, everything's just in place. That's not how I came. It's a much more loosey-goosey California feel in that sense. And to have it more, lesson plans in place, and people will make things their own, and then they'll loosen up. But when you first land, it's hard, we get a scope and sequence, and it says, Mendelian genetics, well, what do you want me to tell them?
What does that mean?
It's like, well, okay, but exactly what we do. So it's like, follow this, do this, it'll flow into that, to create a little bit more flow, what I would have to say, and work with the other science teachers to create that. We have an incredibly good group right now who are very well trained in their own right, and from very different backgrounds, very different perspectives, and very different gifts. So try to maximize that and put it in place so that whoever comes into this space we will have everything in place for them. Experiments in the lab, I'd like to get a set of shelves and just have a shelf for each, really big experiment that's part of the curriculum, so they just have to walk in, take it off, and just run the whole thing and then just walk out. That's not in place right now. So more to build sort of the structure to make things more streamlined for the teachers, which will make it easier for the students to expand on things. Because if you're trying to build, you only have 50 minutes for a lab, and if you're trying to build on something, and sometimes you can't really expand the way the kid needs.
Yep.
So that I would think that would be, to make things more accessible for the teachers, so that it would eventually be more accessible for the kids.
What do you like to do when you're away from work and wind down?
I have been training Krav Maga for about 6 years.
Wow.
I am a children's instructor. I haven't been teaching lately because most of the time I'm here. We've also started a program for competitive Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I just got my first stripe about a month ago.
I'm not messing with you.
It's good to be punching things. It's really nice. We have a bag class every Tuesday night. I never miss it. And it's wonderful. It's not your sort of kind of macho environment. We have full range of ages and backgrounds, and men and women, and strength levels, and it's really a wonderful community. So I was teaching and doing that before I started here. I was tutoring and doing that, and I'm not really tutoring anymore. I don't have time, but I do that as well. So principally when I'm not here, that's if I'm not just sort of going home and passing out.
Are you a traveler?
I used to be, but as I said, originally from New York, I used to go home a lot, but it's just, your schedule is just insane.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends who are constantly, oh, let's go to Washington for the weekend, or let's, what are you going to do for spring break? And it's like, well, sleep. What do you think I'm going to do? Let's go to San Diego. It's like, that would be awesome, but I'd rather just sleep here. It's cheaper.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I'll go to the zoo a couple times and sleep for the rest of the day. So right now it's still, my time is, I do like to travel. I'm a zoo person, so of course San Diego, and
nice.
And I do, as I said, New York. I miss the city. I miss it a lot. So I would like to go home soon, visit family, and so that not really. Mostly just the Krav, Turner Classic movies.
Nice. What's your favorite Turner Classic movie?
Turner Classic movies. That is really difficult. I love the Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers series. I mean, anything that's harmless, I suppose. I really like harmless because my entertainment, I don't need things exploding. I would really much prefer, kind of just people dancing.
Old school.
Yes, very much so. So, that's pretty much.
Top 5 actors of all time.
Top 5 actors of all time. Oh my goodness. Jimmy Stewart. Cary Grant. Fred Astaire. Gene Kelly. And who else would be in there? Number 5. I can't think of it.
Some students are going to be like, who the heck is he talking about?
Well, that's the other thing. It's like we're dealing with, I call us, there's a certain word, 20th century adults. Like we were adults in the 20th century. And so, that's, it's a different perspective. We knew people who went through the Depression. We knew people who, served either in, World War II or in the Korean War or Vietnam for that matter. And it's a different way of looking at life. And so, sometimes the kid's perspective is they'll say, I'll show them things, and they're just horrified. I showed them one time, one of my kids, them spraying kids in school with DDT. Oh, yeah. To keep them from encephalitis. Yeah. And you're like, they're sitting there eating their lunch and they're spraying them with DDT. And it's just, they're like, what are they doing? It's like they're spraying them with pesticides to protect them from, it's like, they can't conceive of a world that doesn't come through their phones. So
if Apple didn't make it,
no, it didn't.
Doesn't apply.
No, it did not exist before Apple. Yes. BA before Apple.
Well, I tell my students, always find out something you didn't know about the person. I think we found out a lot about Tom Ryan today.
Oh, thank you.
I think it was all extremely, I think it's very positive for the students from that perspective, that they're coming to a person who cares about them. And I think if I'm a teacher, which I am, I want the student to care about me,
Right.
and I want to care about them.
Right.
Everybody
That's
wins
key.
that way, right?
Right. That's key. I'd rather, I'd rather them think of me who's someone they can, as I said, trust. I keep a lot of food in my room. They depend on that food. The Utz pretzels, the big round container.
I'm a candy guy. Do you have candy in there?
I do have a little bit of candy. Well, actually, the candy goes fast.
I'm sure it
No,
does.
I had one of the big bags of gummies from Marshall's over here. It went in a week. Yeah, they just kept doing it.
I was gonna say a day.
Well, they don't like just walk in the middle of a class. They actually ask, which is good.
Which is nice.
Where they get a fistful every once in a while, but sometimes they just need they need the boost. So no, I have a lot of protein bars. Excellent. For some of the kids who who really they need that kind of boost. So yeah, no.
Well, now I know Tom Ryan's office is the place to go. for protein
that is true.
And candy boost.
That is true.
But Tom, thanks so much for spending time with us on the Fusion Fan Pod, and we look forward to many more nice conversations in the future.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you very much for having me.
That's Tom Ryan. I'm Jon Meterparel. Be sure to tune in again to our next edition of the Fusion Fan Pod. Outstanding. And you'll be hearing that posted soon.
Okay.
As soon as Michelle figures out how to post it on the website.
So, wonderful.